I've decided to start a new life without you. Her words, delivered with rehearsed calm, cut through the cheerful buzz of a rooftop restaurant in downtown Denver. Even the clink of silverware seemed to stop. The soft jazz near the bar faded into nothing. Conversations froze mid-sentence, words hanging unfinished in the air. We were supposed to be celebrating my daughter's college graduation. Lauren, my wife of 26 years, stood with her champagne flute hovering inches from her lips. The toast she'd planned for Natalie's achievements was displaced by the announcement she chose to make about me. The skyline lights blinked in the glass behind her, in different constellations in a suddenly quiet room. I felt the weight of about 60 pairs of eyes turned toward me, a slow, collective swivel. Their faces became a gallery of morbid curiosity, watching me like a live crash on a screen. They expected shouting. Maybe a fist slammed into white linen. Maybe a dramatic storm off toward the elevator. Instead, I held their gaze, turned to Lauren, and nodded once, slow, deliberate, the motion I'd practiced in 1,000 sleepless nights. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said, even and clear. "My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 55, and until that moment I had played the agreeable husband and dependable father so faithfully it might as well have been stitched into the lining of my suit. I'd shelved my long-held plan, opening a financial planning practice to help families navigate their futures, so Lauren could chase a rotating carousel of passion projects, startups, and self-discovery sabbaticals. I was the bedrock, she was the restless tide. I socked away money for Natalie's tuition while Lauren invested a substantial sum from our joint savings into a wellness studio with a friend, a venture that shuttered after 8 months. I picked up extra clients and worked late nights as a senior analyst at Westmount Capital while Lauren pursued artisan pottery for 5 months before deciding her true calling was high-end event planning. Natalie sat beside me, her graduation cap still crooked on her curls, her proud smile crushed into a thin, horrified line. She looked from her mother to me, eyes wide with confusion and pain. From the edge of my vision, I saw a younger man, Tyler Brooks, shift in his seat near the bar. He was with a handful of people I had once called friends, and the complicit way they avoided my eyes told me everything I needed to know. It was sickeningly clear they had all known. A flash of memory. Tyler, with his 2 white sneakers and carefully managed stubble, at our backyard cookouts. He'd shaken my hand, eaten my burgers. He'd even cornered me once for advice on growing wealth in a volatile market. I had given him a polite, general answer, never suspecting the most volatile market he cared about was my own marriage. With hands steady only by force of will, I reached into my inner jacket pocket. I pulled out a sealed navy envelope and set it beside Lauren's dessert spoon. She blinked at it as if it might strike. "What's this?" she asked, bravery sounding rented. "Something for you to read later," I said. I turned to Natalie and tried to pour every ounce of love into my eyes. "I am so proud of you, kiddo. Nothing changes that. This night is still about your accomplishment." I stood and smoothed my suit in a gesture of normalcy. I faced the guests, who were trying very hard not to stare. "Please," I said, calm but carrying, "enjoy your evening. The stakes are excellent." I nodded once more and walked toward the elevators, a roomful of eyes drilling into my back. The doors closed, cutting off a chorus of hushed whispers. Outside, in the cool Colorado night, the thin mountain air felt like an unearned gift. For the first time in years, I could inhale without tasting eggshells. Behind me, a metal service door banged open and Lauren's voice chased me into the parking deck, higher now, less sure. "Marcus, what is this? What did you do?" I didn't turn. I smiled, a real smile, because the envelope in her hand wasn't a goodbye note or a plea. It was the first card in a deck I'd been stacking for months. I've always been the practical one. Lauren dreamed big. I kept the lights on. I saved for Natalie's future. Lauren invested in fleeting ideals. And while she wandered, I learned to follow money wherever it tried to hide. About 4 months earlier, a small discrepancy caught my eye. A transfer from our joint checking account to an account I didn't recognize. $240 here, $410 there. Small enough to be a mistake, consistent enough to be a pattern. I've spent 30 years reading the footprints money leaves. These weren't accidents, they were tests. I didn't confront her. Shout at a fox and you'll scare it, you still won't find the den. I started digging quietly, late at night, when the house was silent and she was asleep. What I found made my hands shake, long past the point I thought surprise could reach me. For over 14 months, Lauren had siphoned funds into a new account in her name only. She charged dinners that cost more than a mortgage payment. Jewelry for self-love. And worst of all, the security deposit on a furnished loft near the Rhino Art District studio space, she'd called it. In Tyler's texts, they called it our place. The open phone was a stupid accident. She left it on the kitchen island when the oven timer went off. I'm not proud that I looked, but when you smell smoke in your own home, you don't ignore it. You search for the fire. The messages were all there, their new life together, her disdain for playing mom to a middle-aged man with small dreams, and the plan to make a public announcement the day after Natalie's graduation so I couldn't manipulate the narrative. Lauren forgot, or never cared, that I'd balanced the infrastructure of our lives. I know how money wears disguises. I know where it hides. And I remembered something else, the prenuptial agreement we signed 26 years ago. Back then, I had the bigger savings and she had the bigger dreams. She insisted on it in a haze of 90s era empowerment. She wanted her future earnings protected from my traditional mindset. The document included a fidelity clause, one of those archaic details people think don't matter. It was still valid. Irony, like interest, compounds. While Lauren plotted a cinematic exit with Tyler, I assembled a playbook. I scheduled discreet meetings with Daniel Price, a top family law attorney. I documented every unauthorized transfer. I printed every receipt. I captured the texts. I scheduled the divorce filing. I timed everything. If she wanted spectacle, fine. But I wouldn't let our daughter's milestone become my public humiliation. I didn't go back upstairs. I drove home to our brick colonial in Washington Park, the house we bought 12 years ago and refinanced twice to fund her ventures, parked in the driveway, and stepped into a museum of our family. Natalie's first day of kindergarten. A framed concert poster from our 10th anniversary trip to Austin. A handmade clay bowl from Lauren's pottery phase, sitting perfectly imperfect on the mantel. Upstairs, 2 brand new suitcases crouched beneath Lauren's dresses, already packed. A note was taped to one. To the loft. The predictability of it would have made me laugh if it hadn't sharpened the ache in my ribs. My phone buzzed on the counter hard enough to dance. Friends. A neighbor. Natalie. Even Jenna, my brother's wife, who had flown in from Seattle. I answered one message. To Natalie. I'm okay. This is not yours to carry. Enjoy tonight as much as you can. We'll talk tomorrow morning. I love you. I had kept this from her for months. I knew she would be furious with me for keeping the truth from her, but I couldn't let this chaos disrupt her final semester. She had poured everything she had into her studies, working 2 jobs with a singular focus on graduating without debt. She has my determination and Lauren's natural charm, a combination I believe is unstoppable. 2 hours later, the garage door rumbled. Lauren came in hot, the navy envelope opened and creased in her hand, cheeks flushed, shame or rage. Under bright light, they looked the same. What is the meaning of this? She shook the papers. You filed for divorce today, of all days. It aligns with your plan, I said, smooth and level. You wanted to start a new life. I'm clearing the path. You don't have the right. I have every right, I said. Just like you had the right to pick Tyler. We all make choices. She regrouped. The prenup is old news, Marcus. It expired. Tyler looked it up. Any lawyer will say so. Section 14. Duration runs through the marriage and the dissolution proceedings. Your lawyer should have explained that. She stilled. Lauren hated being the last to get the joke. You set me up, she said quietly. I protected myself, I said. From the person who was supposed to protect me, too. Her phone pinged. She ignored it. You're cruel. You tried to humiliate me at our daughter's celebration, I said. You moved money for over a year. You planned a public execution so I couldn't respond without looking unhinged. I'm many things, Lauren. Unhinged isn't one. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Let's not burn the world down. We can be adults. Start by telling the truth. A lie formed on her lips. I tapped my phone and played an audio file. Her voice filled the room from a late-night call she made by the refrigerator, thinking I was asleep. After the graduation, I'll make it public, Lauren's voice said, bright and ruthless. He won't make a scene in front of everyone. He never does. Tyler's tinny laugh. And he has no idea about the transfers? None. Marcus trusts me to handle the home stuff. That's his weak spot. Her face strained. You recorded me? That's illegal. Not in Colorado, one-party consent, I said, quoting my lawyer. And I recorded only the parts where you discussed defrauding me. She planted her hands on her hips. I need to make calls. Start with an attorney. I'll be at Jenna's tonight. Jenna? She scoffed. You told your brother's wife before you told me? Jenna told me first, I said. She saw you and Tyler together at a holiday charity gala 3 months ago. She gave you a chance to come clean. You called it nothing. When it was clear it wasn't, she came to me. Lauren stared, furious and calculating. Everyone's betraying me. Ironic, I said, lifting an overnight bag from by the door. You have until tomorrow evening to get your things. After that, the locks change. Her phone pinged again. Tyler's at the loft, she said. He moved some things in. The lease you signed last month, the one in both your names? I asked gently. The application was flagged for credit issues. The leasing office called the house line to verify my income, I answered. I told them we were withdrawing. Her mouth opened and closed. You can't control my life. You tried to control my dignity, I said. We're even. I left her with the envelope and silence, and drove to Jenna's bungalow near City Park. She met me on the porch before I'd unfastened my seat belt and hugged me so hard my ribs complained. I heard, she said. Are you okay? Better than I should be, I said. Inside, 2 glasses of red wine and the plant-filled sunroom. I can't believe she did it at the party, Jenna said, outraged. In front of Natalie. Someone who wanted theater, I said. A public message so I couldn't respond. What was in the envelope? She asked. The divorce filing. A summary of the transfers. A copy of the prenup with the fidelity clause highlighted. Jenna laughed once, hard and satisfied. The prenup she insisted on. The irony is almost tender. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel Price. Emergency motion granted. Accounts you identified are frozen pending preliminary hearing. Joint credit lines suspended to prevent further dissipation. Personal accounts preserved for living expenses. I showed Jenna. Good, she said. Then Natalie. Hey, Dad. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already on my way, she said. Mom is calling people, telling them you lost your mind, that you plotted to trap her. It's ugly. Let her talk, I said. Truth is more important. 25 minutes later, Natalie arrived in her white dress and uncomfortable, professional shoes. Mascara smudged the corners of her eyes. She stepped into my arms like she had when she was 6 and certain there were monsters under her bed. Why didn't you tell me? She asked into my shoulder. I didn't want to trip you on your last lap, I said. You deserved a clean finish. Well, Mom took care of that, she said, a cracked laugh that was more pain than humor. We sat in the living room. I told her everything, the transfers, the loft, the texts, the plan to announce it at her celebration. She listened, still and grave. I knew something was off, she said finally. She was on her phone nonstop. She kept saying money was tight while I was taking extra shifts. I didn't imagine this. We don't see what we can't bear to see, Jenna said, squeezing her hand. The doorbell rang. Jenna peeked and sighed. It's Lauren, she said. And she brought Tyler. They entered like a storm front. Lauren wore the look of an attorney about to argue a case she knew she'd lose. Tyler scanned the room with the smirk of someone who thinks he's the hero in a movie where he barely made the cast. Marcus, unfreeze the accounts, Lauren said. We can handle this like adults. Natalie stood and edged herself in front of me, a protective gesture that broke my heart. Like adults? You torched my graduation dinner because you wanted an audience. This is between me and your father, Lauren snapped. It became about me when you chose my graduation to star in your breakup scene. Natalie shot back. Tyler stepped closer to Lauren, trying to matter by proximity. Look, man, he said in a voice that had never spoken to a bill collector. Punishing her financially isn't a good vibe. The accounts will remain frozen, I said. The preliminary hearing is in 4 days. The judge will sort it out. 4 days? Lauren repeated like I'd said 400 years. What am I supposed to do? You have your personal account, I said. The one you've been feeding for 14 months. Tyler's head snapped toward Lauren. How much is in that? He asked, low and fast. Lauren didn't answer. The silence told him more than a number would. Fissures opened in their brand new alliance. This is vindictive, Lauren said to me. This isn't you. Maybe you never knew me, I said. Like I didn't know you. Natalie fixed her gaze on Tyler. Did you know she planned to announce it tonight? He shrugged, aiming for casual. We talked about transparency. You mean spectacle, Natalie said. I think you should both leave, Jenna said, calm but with steel. Sweetheart, Lauren said to Natalie, the word landing like a hammer. People grow apart. You'll understand when. What I understand, Natalie cut in, voice shaking, is that you called me this morning to say you were proud of me, and 8 hours later you lit a match to my entire night. What I understand is that you were moving money while telling me to take more shifts because things were tight. That's not how. Lauren started. It is, Natalie said. Please go. I can't look at you right now. Silence. Tyler tugged at his collar. Lauren looked at me with fury that had nowhere safe to land. This isn't over, she said. You're welcome to try again, I said. After the door closed, Natalie sank onto the couch, the tears finally breaking through. I've never talked to Mom like that, she whispered. Sometimes doing the right thing feels wrong in the moment, I said, pulling her close. Jenna lifted her glass. To better beginnings. Better beginnings, I echoed, and meant it. The preliminary hearing was on a gray Friday morning. I arrived with Daniel, a quiet man with surgical notes. Lauren was represented by a corporate lawyer who seemed to have prepared by reading the Wikipedia page for prenuptial agreements. Tyler sat in the back row tapping his foot. The judge, cropped haircut, a stare that could iron cotton, read the prenuptial agreement line by line. Section 14, duration through marriage and dissolution. Valid. Section 19, fidelity clause. Enforceable under state law. Section 21, financial disclosure obligations. Transfer documentation indicates a potential violation. Lauren's attorney argued the duration clause had expired by implication. Law is not a magic trick, counsel, the judge said. The words mean what they say. Motion to maintain the freeze on joint accounts is granted pending full discovery. Mr. Reed retains exclusive use of the family residence pursuant to the infidelity clause. Mrs. Reed's personal account remains accessible for living expenses. We reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing. Lauren stiffened and whispered furiously to her lawyer. He nodded the nod of damage control. In the hallway, she intercepted me. Marcus, please. 26 years. Doesn't that count for something? It counted for everything, I said. Until you decided it counted for nothing. Word got out. Some friends called to be heartbroken but supportive. Others called to ask questions polished to sound like concern. I kept my answer simple. We're separating. I wish her well. I didn't discuss fidelity, finances, or exposed brick. Lauren's image, the successful entrepreneur, the devoted mother, began to run out of gas in the social circles that used to refill it for free. The money she'd stashed was enough to float, not enough to sail. The loft fell through. The luxury SUV deposit vanished in a cancellation email. Tyler's enthusiasm for their new life seemed to vanish along with the lease on the downtown loft. 3 weeks after the hearing, Jenna texted, "Guess who moved his stuff out of Lauren's temporary apartment?" The news didn't make me happy. It didn't make me sad. Mostly it made me tired. Meanwhile, I'd built the thing I'd promised myself a decade earlier. I subleased a small office near Cherry Creek, a space with a window overlooking an old maple. I registered the name, Reed Family Financial. My first clients were 2 sisters untangling their late mother's accounts. Then a teacher, married 22 years to a man who hid debt. Then a widower with grateful, tear-filled eyes when I showed him how to automate bills that had overwhelmed him since his wife died. It felt different from corporate work. These were real problems, real lives, and I could provide real relief. I was doing what I wish someone had done for me sooner: clarify, prepare, empower. Natalie landed a marketing job with a tech firm in Boulder. She called every Sunday. "You're kind of killing it, Dad," she said after I read her a thank you note that made me sit down. "I'm doing for others what I wish someone had done for me sooner," I said. Clarify. Prepare. Empower. The full hearing arrived on a date rattling with irony, the day that would have been our 27th anniversary. Lauren walked in brittle around the eyes. Tyler wasn't with her. The judge moved through the file with brisk efficiency. Here's the thing about justice. When you've prepared for it, it feels less like lightning and more like sunrise. The court upheld the prenuptial agreement in every relevant part. The fidelity clause meant Lauren forfeited her claim to the house and a significant share of our joint investments. The transfer documentation required full accounting of funds moved without disclosure. The retirement account stayed largely in my name, with a fair portion assigned to her as required by law, but far less than she'd imagined when she began charting her escape. When the gavel came down, the room didn't cheer. It didn't need to. The quiet finality was enough. Near the double doors, Lauren approached me. "I made a terrible mistake," she said softly. "Is there any chance we—" "No," I said, gentle but immovable. "That door is closed." She nodded, as if the weight of the words finally settled where they belong. "I hope you find happiness, Marcus. You deserve it." It was the truest thing she'd said in years. 6 months later, Reed Family Financial outgrew the little office with the maple view. I signed a lease for a larger suite closer to downtown and hired 2 associates, one who specialized in divorce planning, one who could explain investments without sounding like a brochure. On the conference room wall, I hung 3 framed statements. Clarity is kindness. Plan with your future self in the room. Dignity is a line you draw for yourself. Natalie stopped by on Fridays. We'd walk to a coffee shop and talk about her campaigns and my clients. She told me how she'd convinced a stubborn founder to trust the data. I told her how I showed a newly single nurse she could buy a condo without drowning in debt. "You know what's ironic?" she said, stirring her latte. "If Mom had been honest from the start, she probably would have walked away with close to half." "Sometimes people can't see past the next shiny object," I said. "They mistake a reflection for a window." We didn't talk much about Lauren after that. Natalie met her for brunch sometimes, and that was okay. They were learning a new language, smaller words, fewer promises. I wished them fluency. Looking back on that night, I realized it wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. For years, I hadn't truly seen the man in the mirror. Lauren's announcement forced me to look. The man who walked out of that restaurant decided to be someone he could respect. My life isn't defined by that ending, but by the beginning that followed. My business thrives on helping others find clarity in chaos. My bond with Natalie is honest and deep. There are still nights I feel the sting of betrayal, but it fades quickly. The most important thing I've learned is that strength is quiet. It's the decision you make when no one is clapping. It's choosing to build a life on the bedrock of truth, even when it's the harder path. Lauren wanted a public spectacle. I chose a private victory and a better future. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.